What's up? Do you want to make your marquee letters or numbers look even better? If so, I'm going to show you a simple trick that'll make a big difference. Hi, I'm Dennis, and welcome back to Nicely Done. I've been making marquee letters and numbers for some time now, and along the way I've learned a few tricks. In this video, I'm going to show you a couple of those, especially one that will make your marquee letters look a little more professional. Okay, I initially would use 1/4-inch sanded plywood and staples for my borders. This worked out, but the absence of glue was my first downfall. I ended up having borders fall apart on me, and I decided I needed another approach, one that was sturdier than the previous. This is where the groove is a perfect solution. A groove is nothing too fancy. It's just a slot that runs along the grains of the wood. For marquee letters, we will make the groove dead center along the board. So let's see how we go ahead and do it. Before we start, we're going to need a couple things: combination square, clamps, utility knife, glue, and a brad nailer. At this point, we're going to determine what the middle of the board is so we can know the exact width. This is going to be very important. For this task, I'm using a combination square because it's the most precise tool that I have for this particular job. And like the name says, the combination square allows you to keep the tool square to the surface that you're measuring. And obviously you can see that I'm writing down the actual dimensions of the piece of wood. It's in centimeters, not millimeters. And you also notice that the halfway point should be 7.75. I'll change that. At this point, you want to determine the halfway point so you can create a center line. I'm using a utility knife here because it's more precise than an actual pencil. Gets a lot closer up to the combination square so I can make a more accurate measurement. I'll be using a router to make the groove. And since the router bit is a 1/2 inch, I need a line that is a 1/4 inch from the center. And I only need this line on one side, and you'll see why soon. But this is a very important step. An additional measurement that I need is the distance from the router bit exterior to the exterior of the router plate. Now we're getting a jig construction, and so this piece of wood that I just put onto my workpiece is essentially going to be the fence that the router rides on. But it's very important that this is that 4 centimeters away so that when I cut the groove, it's perfect. You'll see what I'm talking about soon. This next piece of wood is just like a backstop that goes onto the workpiece. I fasten this down to the MDF surface that the workpiece sits on. It's just to keep everything in place. With everything assembled correctly, the workpiece should be able to slide in and out, but not too loosely. You want it as tight as possible. Let's take a look at what the router will look like sliding up and along the fence, and what the groove will look like as it is fitted into the actual marquee face. For this project to be complete, you're definitely going to need some wood glue as well as a brad nailer that you've seen me use already. This will be strong enough to endure an entire build for Marquee letter, but let's get into something else where we actually are going to cut this groove out. Now, this is a previous video where I've done this setup, but I did it with clamps instead of using a brad nailer. But everything, hopefully you can see, is essentially the same. After you're completed with all of your pieces, then you can cut them to size and start fitting them along your Marquee letter. That is a video for another day, however. So now let's just look at some of the numbers I was able to build. I will be getting into a more detailed example of how I built these numbers and some additional tips that you can use to make them look even more refined. Right now, you see that this number 2 has a particular finish that is a lot better than this 0, and I can get into the differences of that in my next video. So hopefully stay tuned. Subscribe if you like what you learned here. And yeah, I think it makes for a better exterior to the Marquee letters. I'll see you on the next one.